Hello and welcome to the show. We are here today on BeamNG Drive. We're back at the desert speedrun. We've done this a couple of times before. It is always rather terrifying. Cars with far too much power are going to try and go, well, as quickly as possible down a road. For this format, we would have 2 runs with our vehicles to try and set our time. And this is all about average speed. There is, well, the start line and the finish point. 3.9 miles of road is what we had to tackle with. Cars are going from a rolling start in this one. And yeah, the victor was going to be the one that could get the highest average speed between those 2 points. And as I said, these cars are absolutely wild. They have a huge amount of power and control is very, very questionable. The road is bumpy and there are corners to deal with. So, yeah, it is a real challenge. Up first, we have got Stevie. So he was driving a Barstow in this one. Now, this is the least powerful car here. Okay, as well, I think it's 1,600 horsepower. My replay was being a little bit funny with the power figures, but from what I remember, 1,600 horsepower is the least powerful vehicle that we had got running in this one. Now, Stevie would do 2 runs. The first run would be a sort of banker run, if you like. The second run with the car whacked up in terms of horsepower. Now, this is a rear-wheel drive vehicle. However, sometimes very long gearings trying to get some of this stuff off the line. You've either got crazy amounts of wheel speed, some of them can be a little bit sluggish off the line. But again, this is an astronomically quick car, and it's the least powerful that we have to deal with. You can see immediate struggles of trying to get the car through the corner. Now, this section here, in theory, while there are sort of curves to it, should be flat out for all of these vehicles, and indeed the Barstow will be very rapid as it heads down through this section. You've then got, as you sort of go over this crest, the petrol station corner is terrifying. It is probably not flat out for quite a few cars, and then there are some serious bumps. You can see the Barstow is wanting to let go. Now, the downside with this car is it does not have the biggest of nitro tanks, and it starts running out of nitro basically as it is coming down this finishing stretch. I mean, it's still got a lot of power. It's still doing well over 240 miles an hour, but yes, it does start running out of nitro, and that is Stevie across the line, an average speed of 217.7 miles an hour and no brakes to get the car stopped after crossing the line. A common thing that you will see with these vehicles is everything has gone into making them as fast as possible, and attention wasn't really paid to the brakes. Now, up next we go to the most powerful car that we have here. Gliska was driving a Bastion with over 7,000 horsepower, which blew up immediately on the first run. Was barely a few seconds into the run when the engine went pop. Now, of course, this is one of the dangers with these, ridiculously powerful engines. This is 7,138 horsepower. There we go, going through the engine of this car. Crazy power figures. But it does, they come at a cost, and the Bastion engine was somewhat, shall we say, temperamental, and that made the run rather difficult in that because I couldn't really launch it crazy hard. It basically became a case of have to be, I'm going to say this, a little bit cautious. This is a little bit cautious doing well past 200 miles an hour, but basically it struggled to be able to do the full run at full tilt. So you had to kind of pick and choose the moment at which to utilise the astonishing amount of power. Now, I drove a Bastion the last one of these that we did, and I had real control issues. This one looked a little bit nicer on the control department, at least, which is something. I mean, it does look cool. I love the engine with the the intercoolers sticking out. It's an absolutely wild engine. It gets around the petrol station corner, then the engine can be fully unleashed, and it's kind of less of a concern if it happens to blow up. And sure enough, it absolutely howls its way down towards the finish line. It's going well over 300 miles an hour as it blasts across the line. The average, though, 224 for the Bastion. It beats Stevie, but yeah, just could not. The engine could not contain all of that power meant it had to be used somewhat sparingly. Again, another car, no chance of, of getting it stopped. I mean, there's quite a big runoff area here afterwards, but your cars are going so fast. Euan would be running up next. Wanted to see what a Stambeco could do. It's very powerful. 4,000 horsepower in a Stambeco is quite alarming. And one of the plus points for the Stambeco is that, well, it doesn't really matter if it hits the dirt. Well, in theory, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's still going 200 mile an hour plus. Probably not going to be great hitting the dirt, but no other vehicle could get away with that. None of the other vehicles in this run could really get away with what the Stambeco was doing. Definitely not that bit. It's bouncing around all over the place. Euan doesn't lift, of course. It is through all of that. It was a bit of a scruffy first run. Spectacular. But yeah, the big advantage of the Stambeco, and it's not on drag tyres or slick tyres, as you can see. It's actually on its, I say, more normal tyres, which is surprising they didn't blow up. But yeah, it is a ridiculously fast Stambeco that is able to survive some things that a lot of other vehicles wouldn't. It's definitely not the easiest to drive because these tyres do not have the biggest amount of grip. You're really struggling trying to get it under control as it wiggles its way and blasts its way down towards the finish line in this one. I mean, it's still a mighty good average speed. 200 miles an hour as an average in a Stambeco over 4 miles is good going. It does, though, not get stopped and rather sadly wraps itself around a lamppost. Very made a 90-degree Stambeco going on. Yeah, funnily enough, control and trying to get slowed down was not its strong suit in this one. Up next, Blazer with a D-Series. We're still in the 4,000. This is 4,280 horsepower. There are 3 massive nitro bottles in this truck. It is absolutely bonkers. And as you can see, the handling somewhat reflects that. It is not controllable. In fact, at no point was it really going in a straight line for a lot of this run, which is somewhat problematic when you're trying to go well over 200 and over 300 miles an hour down these straights. And sure enough, Blazer loses the back end, hits a bump, and it is the rapid disassembly of a D-Series going on. It'll fling all of the bits. Again, that is about 270 miles an hour, I think that one goes off at. It's a massive, massive accident. The truck is fast. This D-Series is genuinely very, very, very quick. The problem that Blazer was having with it is for all of that speed, it just really, really lacked control. It was bouncing around something horrible and just, yeah, would not go in a straight line. Didn't seem to matter what was done with it. It just didn't want to cooperate. And sure enough, a similar thing on the second run. A huge oversteer moment at very high speed, and Blazer could not gather it up, but it was through the petrol station and a rather disinterested looking dinosaur watches on as the smouldering wreck of the D-Series. So there was no time, no speed set for that. Longbo would go a different direction to the rest of us. While there were some all-wheel drive and some rear-wheel drive machines, Longbo wanted to try and make the fastest front-wheel drive machine. And I mean, this is not to be messed with. It is the second least powerful vehicle at just under 1,800 horsepower. Again, that is all going through the front wheel. As you can see, they are immense front tyres. They are immense front wheels. And you know, it's going to struggle off the line. It's going to be a weakness for the car, but it does still have, you know, the tyre to try and utilise a good chunk of that power. And it was actually relatively composed. For a lot of the run, Pessima was pretty composed. Both of the runs that it did were on the, I'm going to say undramatic, and that is the wrong thing to say when you've got cars going over 300 miles an hour, because this absolutely could do over 300 miles an hour. The main concern with the vehicle was grip rolling at the petrol station corner. That was the place where it could be difficult. Longbo having to slow down a bit going through there. You saw it just about go up onto its side. Not too bad, though, for the Pessima. Once out the other side, it could absolutely fly. As I said, its thing is rapid. This thing is absolutely rapid as it blasts its way towards the line and crosses it average speed, 247.6 miles an hour with a front-wheel drive car. Bear in mind that will lose a fair amount off of the line. The brakes on this, then, were terrible. Absolutely awful. The worst break. Well, I say that a couple of cars did crash before finding out exactly how long it would take them to slow down. The brakes were melted and basically did nothing and almost ran out of road getting stopped, which was also quite impressive. But yeah, for a front-wheel drive car, that is mighty, mighty fast. Now, Danger Man was going for a different approach, if you like, for this. More for the spectacle of how fast could you get a caravan to go. Well, a Roma's not a bad idea for a tow vehicle, and I mean this one here is putting out just over 2,100 horsepower. That is a lot of power to drag a caravan along with. Now, Danger Man was more going for the caravan sort of speed record, if you will, because, you know, ultimately this is never going to compete with a lot of vehicles that are running here, but something unusual occurred in this one. Danger Man, throughout testing, was complaining of having issues with the engine just breaking down, the engine just giving up. And 2,000 horsepower is a lot. It's not that crazy, not in the grand scheme of things. What was actually happening, as you can hear at this point, the engine has given up. It wasn't the engine failing. No, this is the thirstiest vehicle we have ever seen. Now, yes, it is a very powerful engine towing a caravan, but it had run out of fuel. It wasn't the engine breaking down. It had run out of fuel. Now, this was not the case of Danger Man having not put enough fuel in it to start it. No, this was with a full fuel tank. That is a 90-litre fuel tank, and it ran out of fuel down the run. Now, rather entertainingly, there is a petrol station here, so the Roma can go and, well, fill up. Okay, it's a quick reset, but it can fill up with fuel and go again to the finish line. You know, it's a long straight to the finish line. The truck can accelerate, and well, it ran out again by the time it got to the finish line. It took 2 tanks of fuel through the Roma to get it to the finish line of a 3.9 mile course. That is 180 litres of fuel to do essentially 4 miles. For the average speed, I mean, it was still quick despite a petrol stop and then coasting because it ran out of fuel at 116.8 miles an hour. Yeah. That is, I did calculate it, I believe, is 0.1 miles a gallon. This truck was doing. Never seen anything like it. The second run was ran. The Danger Man didn't have the nitro turned on, but it's still going to run out of fuel before it got to the finish line as well. Yeah, absolute madness. That is crazy. I've never seen anything like it before. I would be going for a Bolide, but this one was even madder than a Bolide I've ran previously. This had a ridiculously loud V10, putting out 2,800 horsepower through the rear wheels. Could have had a lot more, but the nitro was so difficult to use, it just normally made it crash, so I gave up running with any nitro in this car. Funnily enough, 2,800 horsepower is more than enough for a Bolide to be unbelievably fast, but in true Bolide fashion, it was unbelievably difficult to keep this thing going, and on my first run, it would get a huge snap of oversteer. I managed to gather it all back up and get the car back into roughly a straight line. I had to slow it down for the petrol station corner. Now, it wasn't because it couldn't hold the speed through there, it was the bumps could be problematic, and I wanted to set a time on this first run. We get over the bumps and then can really open the taps up on this machine, blasting towards the finish line. With the Bolide, it is unbelievably quick through here, and it would cross the line at average speed, 245 miles an hour. It wasn't quite enough to be beating that front-wheel drive Pessima, but it was a solid run, and I knew the dangers of this car, and I knew how tough it was to drive, so it was important to set a solid run so that the second run I could absolutely send it. And I did. I absolutely sent it. The run was going very well. We were hitting well over 335 miles an hour. Unfortunately, the bumps got the better of it. Now, it wasn't actually, as the car lets go, it wasn't bouncing on the bumps exactly that led it to this surprisingly tame accident for having gone off at 300 miles an hour. Could have been a lot worse. It wasn't just physically bouncing on the bumps that caused it to spin. What actually happened was it punctured the tyres. The compression at the speed that we were going at through here, I actually slowed it down. The speed that I was going at going around this corner, I took it fast. It can be done at this speed, but you have to hit the bump perfectly, and I didn't. Yeah, as the car hit the bump, it compresses both rear tyres, puncture, and funnily enough, blowing tyres at this speed while being slightly airborne. That was it. That was the end for the Bolide. A shame, because it was an incredibly quick run up until that point. And astonishingly, as the car is sort of disassembled by the scenery, the actual, it's like drive out the cabin of the vehicle is almost completely untouched in this. The front and rear ends are ripped apart. The driver compartment is all fine. Yeah, I was slightly gutted. I knew the risks. I knew it was dangerous. The run was incredibly quick up until that point. But yeah, sadly, blowing tyres would be the downfall of the Bolide. Mika would be running next with the Sunstorm. Now, we know the Sunstorm is a very, very capable vehicle. This one was running 2,400 horsepower. The power figures that go on in this stuff it's just insane. It's just absolutely bonkers. Yeah, these vehicles are, I say, ridiculously quick. The Sunstorm is one of the easier, and I'm going to say easier, ones to drive. You'll see it's quite twitchy. Mika in their two run, basically the first run was at a tamer run, a banker run, if you like, and turbos were put up, nitro turned up for the second run. This is to kind of give it the full beans down here. You'll see we go through the petrol station corner. It wants to move around. You can see how much the vehicles are bouncing over the bumps. Again, it wants to break traction down there. Front end is horribly bumpy down here when you're doing 300 plus miles an hour. You really do notice all of them, and it's going to shoot its way across the line, and Mika will go to the top with a 253 mile an hour average down here. Again, it's close. It's very, very close. It is ridiculously quick from the Sunstorm, and it does go to the top. Now, Amy was going for an I-Series, went for a slightly different approach on this one, going for an electric-powered machine, which is mighty, mighty powerful. First run, though, too much speed into the petrol station corner, and sure enough, quickly disassembled I-Series on the right. A little bit of desyncing going on as well, but yeah, that corner is really tough, and if you go in there too hot, you are going to be having a really, really bad time. Sure enough, that's what happened to the I-Series. Now, this was all-wheel drive. Okay, all-wheel drive, electric, you're going to get a lot of power off of the line. Now, Beam's calculating of electric power is always a little bit iffy. This says it's 2,100 horsepower, but I don't believe it. Let's put it like that. It will probably be considerably more, just the way the Beam calculates it. Downside of the electric cars is normally gearing. They struggle with the really high, really, really top-end speed is going to be a problem. And sure, this thing was not the very... It's still ridiculous. Don't worry, there'll be a comparison of top speeds later on. It's still ridiculously fast. But what it could do was A, get to that speed quickly, important for an average speed test, and B, hold that speed for quite a long time. It didn't have the power of some of the competition here, but it was stable, and it was able to use its power very, very well, and it shoots up across the line. It would go fastest at a 263.9 average speed over this course. It also didn't stop, but that was about par for the course, with a lot of these vehicles still having problems getting it. Oh, they had problem getting it slowed down. Let the brakes cool a little bit, but it's not as bad as Longbo's, but still, they do struggle to get slowed down. Very, very good run from the I-Series in this one. And that left us with just one vehicle to try and beat the I-Series. Shadows was driving a 6x6 D-Series. The first run was going okay. Got a little greedy going into the petrol station corner. Now, the D-Series could get away with running the dirt, but runs too wide on the exit and clatters over the sort of curbing and the rocks. Now, on my replay, from my replay, the desync did have the wheels ping off. That isn't actually what happened. It punctured all the tyres and it ripped all the tyres apart on that side. It didn't actually lose the wheels. Either way, while done well to gather it back up and get it under control across the line, funnily enough, that is rather going to hurt your your time. Still, a spectacular near miss for the D series in all of that. But yeah, that's not quite going to help. So it was all down to the second run for the D series. Again, you've got very, very good traction with this thing launching. Power-wise, 4,400 horsepower. It's an extreme amount of power in this one, and much like with the I series, it has got the traction, it has got the launch, it can get going very, very well. Much like the I series, its ultimate top speed is not quite going to be as much. Aerodynamically speaking, it's not particularly great. It is, I say quite heavy, but the aerodynamics in particular are not great on this, but it has got stability, it has got more composure than some of the lightweight ultra low downforce, but some of the other machines that have gone through here. And its other trick is it can get away with going over the dirt a little bit. Not as much as the Stambeco, but it can do that no problem. It can use its 4,000 horsepower a lot easier than something like my Bolide, for example. And it's blasted its way towards the line. It had been a very, very good run for Shadows, and it was close, but not close enough. Average speed, 262.9 miles an hour. Just 1 mile an hour short of the I series. But a damn impressive performance nevertheless. Now, before we do go, Longbo had found something. Now, this is not going to be included in the main competition because well, you will very, very quickly see. But it's ridiculous. Now, the power figure for this is irrelevant because it only says about 1,300 horsepower, and that's very wrong, and it doesn't include the rockets that fire. This is one of the maddest machines I've ever seen. It has huge amounts of downforce. Does surprisingly well on the bumps as well. I thought the bumps were going to kill it, but nope. It kind of reminds me a little bit of the Tomahawk thing from Gran Turismo. But it is staggeringly fast, not only in acceleration but in the top speed. And then once you get around the petrol station corner, it hasn't got a huge amount of rocket sort of fuel, if you will. The camera really struggles to keep up with this thing as it blasts its way towards the finish line and does cross it. That was an average speed of 344.9 miles an hour. The top speed it got to, 484. That was when on full rockets. Yeah, it's a bit mad. Very cool to watch go. Very cool to watch go. And yeah, did surprisingly well on the bumps. Yeah, that was crazy. This is so unbelievably fast. But here is the leaderboard for the competition. It was just 1 mile an hour that separated the top two. Amy would take victory from Shadows. In fact, the top 5 were all pretty close in this one. Honestly, I'm gutted that the Bolide burst its tyres. I don't know where it would have slotted in. It would have been very, very close to the top positions because it wasn't a particularly great run that still got to 245 as an average speed. Gliska's engine was a little bit unfortunate. It couldn't hold on to utilise a lot of its power for the full extent of the run in this one. The Barstow ran out of nitro for large portions of this one. The Stambeco, 200 mile an hour average at a Stambeco is still pretty mad, and it definitely had one hell of a spectacular run down in 8th. Danger Man's Roma, I mean, it went through 180 litres of fuel in 4 miles, just under 4 miles. That's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, in some ways that's one of the biggest surprises. The rest of this leaderboard is nothing compared to how much fuel the Roma went through. I mean, I know it was towing a caravan and everything, and that's not going to help its fuel consumption, but still, that is quite remarkable. And well, Blazer had some very spectacular crashes. Now, for those that are curious, while this was all about the average speed over the course of the run, for those curious about the top speeds achieved by each of the vehicles, and interestingly, not only were their average speeds incredibly close, but both the I-Series and the 6x6 did 311 miles an hour. The Sunstorm up to 334 in that one. Longbo's Pessima up to 320. My Bolide did get the highest top speed of all of them at 340. Gliska's 332. Both mine and Gliska's were on like the run to the finish line. Now, I did run the Bolide with nitro, and on the few times I didn't spin it, it could do well over 350, but you just couldn't use that nitro. It was just so difficult to stop it spinning its wheels. But 340 is still an insane speed for that car to get to. Stevie got to 265 before running out of nitro. Euan amazingly got 252 out of a Stambeco, while Danger Man would have easily shattered the Caravan speed record at 193 miles an hour. Wanted to try and get to 200 with the Roma, but could never quite manage it. Blaze's D-Series was monumentally quick. It hit 321 before it had a terrifying accident. At the end of the day, the D-Series was just a little bit too uncontrollable. But there we go. That is going to be it for this video. These are fantastic fun to do, I have to say, trying to wrangle these almost uncontrollable cars. Thank you, Apollo, for your opinions as well. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one, because we had a lot of fun building these and trying to get these down the very, very tricky road. That, though, is going to be it from me. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.